we work in a place that is showing equity and that sort of thing, right? So the corporate world wasn't just interested in getting us off the ground because, like I said, they'd had a coming to Jesus around gay issues. It was because they were losing workforce and they were losing clients and they were losing access to a market that's emerging. So our chamber has a very, so should I stop there and then introduce chamber, or should I just go on and give you the next 3 minutes of what our chamber does?
Why don't you go ahead?
Okay.
Give us the chamber update.
So our chamber is staffed by 11 full-time staff and 6 coaches. We run on a budget of about $3.5 million a year. We started off with nothing, with me as a volunteer 5 years ago. We have an office in East Hampton, Western Massachusetts, and one in downtown Boston. We serve the entire state. We have about 400 members. We specifically add about 100 members a year, because for every 100 members that we add another staff person to support those 100 members. We are not a traditional chamber. I will never invite you to a thing where I'm going to serve you a chicken dinner and we're going to exchange cards. That's not going to happen. We are more like a community development organization. Everything we do is about how we put more money into the pockets of LGBTQ people. And we do that by strengthening the financial well-being of the LGBTQ population, which is by helping businesses thrive and grow, helping individuals climb the ladder professionally, and helping corporate America be more inclusive and accepting and have space for LGBTQ folks. And then also, how do we work with the state and advocacy? How do we do advocacy with the state and the federal government to include LGBT people in some of the programs that are for minority populations? So that's who we are. That's what we do. We've been incredibly successful, and I'm very grateful for the team that I have and for the work we're doing in Massachusetts. But nevertheless, we still face ignorance every day. Just yesterday at a panel, somebody asked, how do you certify that somebody's LGBTQ? They can say they're LGBTQ, but they're not. And then they get certified. And I say, well, how do you certify that you're straight?
Thank you.
Okay. Because you say you're straight and you might not be, right? So the question that they were eliciting was like, well, how do you confirm that somebody's having sex with the same, sex person, or that they're really bi or whatever? Why is it your business? It isn't like saying that I am LGBTQ gives me any privileges at all. If anything, it really gives me a harder time in society. So people aren't apt to say, oh, I'm LGBTQ just to get a certification.
Really?
That doesn't happen, right? So, but this is the ignorance that comes up even in the good old blue state of Massachusetts. So that's who we are. We have had great success in taking businesses from kitchen tables to $1 million budgets. We've had a lot of our businesses get contracts with the state, and increasingly every day more contracts for the corporate sector. We're very tunnel vision. This is what we do. We do business, we do corporates, we do jobs. We don't do elders, we don't do youth. We have great partners in those spaces, and we refer people to those places, and we hold those places accountable for that work. We keep our blinders on, and this is the line that we're in.
That's great.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Are you finding, so I'm from the city of Newton, and one of the things I started almost 2 years ago, and I was like, yes, we're going to expand our diversity for procurement. And I've kind of run up against a wall, and it's much harder than you would think. Have you done work with procure? Like in my mind, I was like, was I procurement officer at something yesterday? Because I could hear him saying that, how do you certify? Have you done some work with procurement officers?
Yeah, so we actually have a procurement officer on our board.
Okay.
And we have 50 corporate sponsors now, 50 corporations that you don't just get to write us a check to say that you're a partner. You have to sign on to a commitment to take your company from wherever space it is to full inclusion of LGBT people. And that includes what you offer for benefits, how you do hiring, how you screen, how you implement pronouns, how you implement gender neutral bathrooms, how you have an ERG for LGBTQ folks, all of the various ways that it's a protected class, right? That it's a group that has been discriminated against. And you could be somebody that's like, man, my company's 10 years old. We haven't done anything. We're just trying to figure it out. That's okay, because you're at the table. Let's start from the beginning, right? Let's start from class one. And then we have people like State Street that have been doing this work for 25 years. And they're like, okay, now we really need to know how to get people in the C-suite. How do we promote, or how do we hire trans people? It's such a, it's a place of huge education for our team. How do we make sure that they're safe once we get them in here, and blah, 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 right? So every company is at a different state. The only thing we require is that you commit to a trajectory of improvement. And we start where you are, we do an assessment, and then we take you along the path, right? So, so that is, that is how we think about the work from a perspective of procurement. As far as procurement officers, I have a procurement roundtable, and we work with senior executives in the procurement teams to talk about how we expand the work of LGBTQ inclusion. The state certifies LGBTQ businesses, so the corporations also take them on as supplier diverse. So, but procurement is a mess across the board. It's not just for LGBTQ.
It is.
Because procurement, and we think about it, procurement was set up to save money and lower risk.
Yep.
Okay. If you hire Johnson & Johnson to provide you with toilet paper, you're going to get it cheaper, and you're going to always get it because they've got a warehouse of toilet paper somewhere, right? If you hire John Smith, who's a Black business owner or a Black LGBTQ business owner, okay, and he's a small vendor, and he doesn't have the buying power that Johnson & Johnson has, his toilet paper is going to be more expensive, and he might run out sometimes, right? So the procurement teams are like, we're not dealing with small businesses, right? Because it doesn't do our job. And then they have supplier diversity teams along the side who are saying, here's a vendor, here's a vendor.
Yep.
And the procurement teams are like, I can't hire them, they're too small. So what we're doing is working with corporations. Plus, the other thing that's important about our chamber is that I don't deal with anybody below the C-suite. If your firm wants to join us, I need somebody in a decision-making power that's going to make things happen from top down.
Okay.
If you start with a coordinator and then a manager and a director, you're never going to get
Yep.
right. For Sanofi, we went right to the to the CEO. He sent the order, they joined, they put a plan together, it all happened in 3 months, they're on it, right? PTC, same thing. State Street, I deal with Paul Francisco, he's in the C-suite. Like, we only deal with C-suite people to start. And if somebody really, really, really wants it and they're not at the table yet, we go through their ERG, because they usually have a C-suite sponsor, an executive sponsor to their ERG, and that's how we enter. Some companies have complained about that, but I've said, if you don't have it coming from the top of your organization, it's not a priority, and it's not going to happen.
Yep. Great. Thank you, Grace. I appreciate all of this.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Grace. Tamara, do you want to go next? Talk about what you do?
First thing I want to say, because the recording came on later, I want to mention that we are all of the presenters in this breakout room, and we have not had anyone come in from the outside. And that would be something that people looking at this down the road, I'd love to have a discussion about. So I just want to make sure that that got into the recording.
Let me just add, one person did step in for a short time and then popped right back
and
up.
got scared and ran.
Yep. My name is Tamara Darcy, and I am a transition specialist for Work Inc. in Fitchburg. Our main office is in Dorchester, Mass. We work with focusing on employment. In Fitchburg, we are all about employment, and we work with individuals with disabilities. So that's always been my focus. And as I'm going through any presentation like that, I'm always looking for that portion, as well as the LGBTQ, to be added to these discussions. What I was finding in a little more background on me, so you understand me a little bit more. I'm a mom of 32. Most of my children have come in as refugees from other countries. So I'm a mom. I'm very, very open to discussion. My ex-husband and I made a decision that we were going to teach our children the facts, and that way that they could be the people that went out into the world with the proper information. And that opened up discussions that were incredibly uncomfortable. I challenge my students. You can try and shock me. I dare you, try it. If you do, you'll get a prize. But let's have these discussions. Let's have these talks. And what I was finding in our organization was, especially with our clientele, people were scared to death to talk about the subject.
So
Whatever
Mara,
the boundary.
sorry to interrupt you, but what is your organization?
It's Work Inc.
Okay.
Sorry. Yeah, kind of important.
Is it a nonprofit or
It's a nonprofit. Yes, yes.
And
The office in Boston is inclusive with disability programs. There's residential programs. We really, really focus on employment. We are subcontracted through agencies, Massachusetts agencies. But it's what we were finding was a lot of, in my office is small. I have a small little group, but all of a sudden it was really, we started bringing this up with, why does Tam have all of these LGBTQ people and trans people, and why are they all in her group? And what we realized as a discussion was, because I'm open about it and I am not afraid to ask those questions.
And you're the executive director, Tamara?
I am not. I am the lead for our pre-employment training program. And that program is working with students 14 to 22 on education about employment. The goal is that they get a leg up so that when they are ready to enter the workforce, they may not need adult services as much. That's our goal, our ultimate goal. But it's really to fill up a toolbox with tricks and tools to get these individuals out into the workforce. It's another untapped market for employment that people and agencies and corporations don't look at. These are people who want to work. They don't have to, because if they stayed home, they would get Social Security and disability, and they want to work. But we were finding that my coworkers would come to me all the time with situations of, oh, I have this situation and I don't know what to do. I don't know how to handle it. What do I do? And I wound up being pulled all over the place to put out fires that were dealing with LGBTQ issues. I wound up becoming the resident expert just through default. So I had to educate myself so that I could speak. I wound up developing is a program to train staff, and I can orient it to staff that works in direct care, so that it's for clients, understanding how to have a discussion about LGBTQ issues with clients, with your coworkers, all of this just to make it not more comfortable, because some people are never going to be comfortable, but understanding that you need to put your own morals and values aside. This is a work environment. This is what we need to focus on. This is how you treat your coworkers. This is what is expected of you. But also having that education, we throw, my example all the time, we throw around acronyms all the time. And if I start within my own organization talking about, MRC and DDS and DMH, everybody knows what I'm talking about. But if I'm saying that to you, oh, it's the same thing that I find for someone who's not needing to know what all of the wordage, the everything that has to do with LGBTQ, there's such a lack of understanding that we get ourselves into trouble, or we just don't talk about it, which was what was happening in my organization. No one was willing to talk with these clients, and they were falling through the wayside. They were having traumatic experiences because people just were so afraid to go in and talk. So I developed a tough talk curriculum, and it's really to educate employers, and from the top down, how to work with your coworkers and how to work with clients. I also gear it toward families as well. It's been really successful. the questions that I get, that, you know what, the older adults shock me where my students do not. But it really is, by the end of these discussions, it actually is opening a door for people to go and get more information, being willing to talk about these topics.
Can I ask a question, Tamara? Tamara, do you have any LGBTQ folks on staff?
Officially or unofficially, because I'm very open about it with my students. To me, the fact that I have a partner at home, I talk about her just like, and I love it because I'll talk about my ex-husband, and then in the next sentence, I talk about my girlfriend. I've always been very open about it, but I know in my own office that has 7 employees, 2 of them are part of the community, but not out in our office. They are to me, but not to anyone else.
But see, this is what takes me to a really, I think this is critical, right? So here we are leading this conversation, yet, but I could say that the work that needs to happen, even within our own organizations, right, is severe. Like everybody on my staff, and that's part of the deal, right? If everybody identifies as LGBTQ in all of the various ways, right? There's a woman who identifies as bi but has a husband. Who am I to question what her, right? So, but the piece that I think has to be done is that we have to ourselves make sure that we are leading and we are running our organizations in a place where people feel safe to be who they are. And if we're not, how can we be teaching others,
Exactly.
how to be, and is it a policy thing? Is it a I just think it's important. And I think it's very common.
It is. And this is what I just had I'll call it a mini battle yesterday about our bathrooms in our office. We have 2 single-use bathrooms. I'm like, can I just buy a nameplate that says restrooms? Why is this such a big deal to make this simple change to make someone feel comfortable? And what I got back was, why is it a big deal? Just go in the men's room. I'm like, you're not there. You don't understand. You have to look at it and empathize from my point of view. I purposely, if the ladies' room's being used, I will go in the men's room and I come out and I get the looks. I don't care. But other people do. And there's reasons that I have coworkers in my office that are not willing to speak up. I was on our DEI committee. I left. I was told I was too outspoken and I expected too much. And I said, you guys aren't ready for me yet. So I'm going to do this internally on my end. And it's, if I have to, I'm going to go from the bottom up, and it's working. Do I want to get in with our CFO and have a discussion about this? Absolutely.
Tamara,
Absolutely.
you work out of the Fitchburg office, so I presume
Yes.
everything you do is in Fitchburg. And Work Inc. is huge in Dorchester, and it's really a
Yes.
nationally known organization that does work with disabled folks. Do you know if they do anything in the Dorchester area? Is there a like you person in the Dorchester area?
In our DEI group right now, I know that there's one that's not openly out in the DEI group because he refuses to come out, and because of what has been happening. What we've been finding is that the thing that I had a hard time with is, number one, I was only allowed to speak on LGBTQ issues. I have 32 children from all over the world. I have a wealth of knowledge, but I was only allowed to speak. I was that LGBTQ person. And I'm like, I'm not the go-to person. I don't have enough background. I need help with this. And it was focused on very specific areas that the lead down was creating. So I'm seeing this as a problem, and we're really trying to Right now, I'm stepping back and working things out in our Fitchburg office with the understanding that I'm going back in. I've had discussions with our CFO about recreating an entity that we can get in and be a real serious part of the DEI department with maybe some changes to that department. So things are happening within our organization, but very slowly. But I see my focus really being on training direct care workers how to work with clients and the questions that are going to come up. And they're always going to be crass and hard because my clients are getting their information from the internet. So for someone to come in and ask a question about, yeah, I saw this rug muncher, what's a rug muncher? And to have somebody totally freak out on them, they're not educating them. And they're so scared that to make a mistake that it just doesn't go anywhere. So that's where right now, that's where my focus is. I definitely want to get in on the upper level of management and work down with that. I need a little bit more support.
I was just going to say that.
You know, I'm doing it. This is
way.
an agency of 500 employees, and I am the only one who's speaking up in our agency and saying, this stuff's, we need to make some changes. Even getting, you know, I just recently, our programming for intake processes had male, female, and you had to fill out male, female. I'm like, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it because I have many clients. Oh, just put it in their nickname. No. I'm sorry, but we need to make our program open for everyone who's coming in. And we need to be, it's not a big deal. Yes, it is. And it is to me. So if it is to me, then it is to other people. And that alone should make the change. Just, it's not hard.
Right.
These changes aren't hard. They just, you know, for people that aren't involved in that attitude of why is it a big deal? It's a huge deal. It's a huge deal if you're dealing with it. I had a mom, I called a mom because I got intake information. And of course, our intake paperwork, it's legal gender, legal name. There's no spot to put an alternative name. So I got all this paperwork with a very masculine name, but got emails from and phone calls from mom with a very feminine name. So my first question when I got mom on the phone was, okay, I'm confused. Can you just, you know, tell me what's going on? And she burst out crying. And I'm like, oh, I just wrecked this. You know, I have to start backing up now. And she's like, no, nobody's just asked me that. And I don't have any place to be able to write that in the form so that it's just not an issue. You know, she's in the process of transitioning. And how do I fill out these forms to show that? There's no place for it.
Yeah. Well, just in interest of time, I think we should move on. But I do, one of my colleagues, my principal of my company is actually on the board. So I am really going to discuss this with him and see what he has to offer. But anyway, Michael, Hattie, whichever wants to go first, whoever wants to go first.
I'll make it very, very brief and quick, and just really echoing what, you know, Grace and Tamara talked about is, you know, this idea of intersectionality. I think Grace touched on a little bit about, you know, your sexual identity, orientation, and or race and identity, ethnicity, all play a role hand in hand. And so I think what we're finding, especially, I'm a student, I'm a senior at LaSalle University studying business management and marketing, also a fellow Rotarian along with Liz in the Rotary Club of Newton. And what we found is that 23% of our undergraduate population identifies within the queer or the LGBTQ plus umbrella. And so, of course, that could mean, you know, bi or gay, lesbian, however folks are identifying, but that's a really significant amount. And those are folks who self-identified. So there could be even a broader net there. But I think absolutely what Grace was saying earlier, that there's a growing market in terms of young professionals who are graduating from colleges and universities and expecting organizations to be prepared for them. You know, as someone who identifies as gay myself, I didn't come out until sophomore sophomore year in college. And so, you know, I know there's many other students who aren't out yet. And so really what I'm focused on, I also serve as a student body president, is creating a more inclusive campus. And so we did that last year by a gender inclusive housing proposal. So prior to last year, or prior to this year, I should say, there was only 2 buildings with gender inclusive housing, which meant that if someone identified as non-binary, you know, they had to live with a male and or female roommate. And so this opened it up. And so that male and or female could live together, or folks who are non-binary, there's just many more options for folks and how they identify. And so that's across campus now. Before, again, it was just in 2 of our buildings. So really major stride. And I have to say, you know, thanks to the administration for being such partners with us. Of course, we did the legwork and we did the research and kind of the proved, you know, the return on investment and why they should make this change. And but luckily we had the support. And so all that being said, you know, it's a changing, ever-changing world with so many different things. And I absolutely agree too. Folks are going to take a job where they know they feel included, where they know they're valued, they know that they're supported. And if that's not happening, you know, I'm not going to take the job, even if it pays 6 figures. That's not for me, because I know how damaging it can be to not have that support. And, you know, Tamar, I'm so sorry that you're experiencing that in your workplace. It sounds incredibly difficult. And that's, I think, also other folks in various companies, organizations, they are holding a lot, supporting a lot in a lot of different directions. And so I think from top and the bottom, there needs to be a grass tops and a grassroots effort from folks on all levels of an organization. So quite difficult, but, you know, absolutely. In this work, I also serve in our Donahue Institute for Equity and Social Justice on campus. So I do Real Talk on Race. We've done safe zone trainings about pronouns, about coming out. So we do a lot to support not only our students, but faculty and staff as well.
Michael, we need to clone you.
Yeah, and Michael, what uni is this?
What
university is this?
LaSalle University.
LaSalle, okay.
Yeah, we're actually right in Newton. We're in Auburndale.
So I'd love to get in touch with you, because one of the things our chamber is doing right now is working with, we just hired Dr. Joe Trigilio, who's done a lot of work in the intersectionality of all of the disparate communities and LGBTQ and how that works. She's brilliant. And we are, she goes by she, they pronouns. Sometimes I say she, sometimes I say they, but they are really, really great. But we're working with universities now and starting to bring them into, because the other reality is that LGBTQ people are not counted, meaning forms don't count us, right? So when you go to apply for programs that the federal government would say, these are programs for the disparate and lower income, we don't know who the gay people are, because we're not counted, we're not in forms. So that's why we started the research and learning center within our chamber and hired Dr. Trigilio and are working with universities to start to put that data together and advocacy around being counted. Because if you're not counting, then that is the most homophobic way of really institutionalizing homophobia, right? If you don't know we're here and you don't know our disparity, then you don't have to do anything about it.
That's right.
You can't deny Black people, you can't deny brown people, because we show up with it on our face, right? But you can't deny LGBTQ people, because if you're looking at me and Michael and Tamara, could you tell? Right?
Absolutely.
Or Hattie or Liz, can you tell? I mean, like I said, I had the craziest question asked the other day. How do you certify an LGBTQ person? How the hell do you certify a straight person?
Right. So it's one of those things, and I would absolutely be interested in connecting Grace and talking more with your contact over there, and maybe figuring out how we can help in any way.
I'll send you over my email address now.
Great.
So Kate, just so you know what's happening here, we hadn't had many participants at all. So we took it upon ourselves to learn about what we all do and how we do it. And we're just having a very casual conversation about it. So thanks for joining. Appreciate it. And Hattie was going to speak next.
Absolutely. Thanks.
So I'm Hattie Kerwin-Derrick. I am the Director of Community Engagement and Inclusion, as well as the LGBTQ plus liaison for the city of Newton. And as I said, so I guess January will be 2 years that I have been with the city. The position was started 6 years ago, I think. Before me was Holly Ryan, who, once she became a city councilor, had to give up the role of LGBTQ plus liaison. And then Mayor Fuller took office, and then I started, and she said, would you like to? And I said, of course. It makes sense that I, in my role also encumber those responsibilities. I am married to a woman. We have 2 kids. One I gave birth to, Stella, who's 17, and then we have an adopted son, David, who just turned 12. And we live in Newton. So, which is always different. I hadn't realized living in the community where you work is very interesting. It's like people say you don't always want to know how the sausage is made. But we've lived in the community as a gay couple with 2 kids for years. Had seen, first I was the nanny. And then, they're like, what do you mean your son's blonde? That can't be your son. Well, yes, it is my son.
Mhm.
But then in my work, I work with residents, kind of overcoming that. But I also work with some employees who are having issues, non-binary. What do you mean? I have to call you they, and kind of, doing some education. And there are some wonderful department heads who are embracing, educating their staff. And then there are some who still have some learning to do. So we're working on that as a city, both internally and then with our residents. And then, connecting, I often will get calls from family people in the schools, although the school has its own DEI person. Sometimes people just feel more comfortable with an outside entity. So I will get calls from parents, my son or daughter, or whomever is having a hard time, and connecting them with resources that they may need. So each week it's something a little bit different, but helping to connect people with the resources within the community. And sometimes we may need to go outside of the community for the best fit for people. So that's in a nutshell what I do. And then the other side, the inclusion part, we don't have a DEI person on the city side. We have made a thoughtful, although I really kind of serve in that role, but not as, DEI is not part of my title. We've done the slow and steady wins the race route. What do we need as a city? Rather than, a lot of cities are like, yep, we're going to put this person into the role and not really know what they're doing with that role or that person, and then not able to support it. So we actually have a consultant who will be working with us, trying to figure out internally as well as externally, where do we need to go as a city so that we can make the best use of that role to support, again, both employees, the municipality, as well as residents as a whole. And that's pretty exciting. And I do serve on a coalition with some DEI directors who are like, you're doing the best thing, because they are finding they're pulled in multiple directions, and either their select board or their mayors don't know how to best utilize them. So I think, the slow and steady wins the race is the best route.
Well, thank you. Very thorough. Thanks, Hattie.
Yep.
So, Kate, you missed the other presenters, and as I said, the conversation was very casual. I don't want to put you on the spot, certainly, but if you had any questions for anyone, Grace Morano is the executive director of the LGBTQ Chamber of Commerce from Massachusetts. Tamara works for Work Inc., and she specializes in helping kids transition, most young adults and kids transition into everyday life around the LGBTQ concerns. And Michael Wu is a student at LaSalle University. And you just heard Hattie present on what she does for the city of Newton.
Absolutely. Thank you all for being present and for presenting, your personal stories. And sorry I missed them, sort of jumping into each one of the presentations and taking, thoughts away. So I guess my one question is, through diversity, equity, and inclusion, where do you feel that from a scale perspective that we've moved in the LGBTQ community?
Let me be the first to reply to that, because I feel like the fact that no participants from Newton showed up to this one means we haven't moved one damn inch. Yep. Okay. Here are 4 people on a Saturday taking time out of their day. We're not getting paid for this. This is not a part of our paycheck, right? And we've prepared, and we've had hours of preparing before we come to this. And not one person in the Rotary decided this was important.
Yeah. Okay.
We had one guy show up, stayed for 2 minutes and left. So it's infuriating to waste your time when just because this is on a roster does not make you inclusive, right? In order to be inclusive, your staff, yourself, everybody, and I don't know who you are, Kate. Are you like the executive director of the Rotary, or?
So no, I'm actually a zone coordinator. I'm not a zone coordinator. I apologize. I'm the chair for DEI for zone 28 and 32, since July. Okay. So I was on the committee, and then I was asked to chair it. I've been a Rotary for about 18 years. I was past district governor. And my husband is of color. My daughter is got a partner. And so we have a lot of diversity in our own family. And so this one's, dear to me, because I listen to my daughter, who is of color, who is with Amanda, who is a white woman. So they have that, as well as that they are, a gay couple. So I listen to their stories. And as you just shared, your sort of emotional feelings, I get a lot from them, right?
Yeah,
so
it's really a place of anger, because,
Sure.
in the last 7 years since Trump got elected, hate has been given permission to exist.
Agreed.
Before you could just go about your business being racist and being a homophobic person in your, backyard, and you held your tongue out in the world. Now the hate is out here. It's been given permission. It's been glorified to exist. So in one way, it's good to see your enemy, right?
Right.
But in another way, you show up to these things and you think, okay, how is the Newton Rotary really doing this work? How are they really educating their staff? What are their own policies around, inclusion? Where are your pronouns on your titles here, right?
Grace, can I just stop you? It's just not the Newton Rotary. This is a District 7910 platform. So that includes many clubs.
Even then.
And people from all over the world, actually, and in other states.
Even so,
right.
What are you doing within your own groups, right?
Right.
To make the changes that have to be made internally. And as Tamara was saying, this isn't easy work. You're going to come across a whole lot of objections, right? But, okay, all right, let's go. Let's go from the top. What are the parts? Let's go. Why are you resisting pronouns? Why are you let's have that education. If at the end of the day, it's because, well, God said, and John 3, I'm going to be like, listen, this is a place of appointment. What your beliefs are spiritually,
those are
don't make policy in our work of employment, right? So the fact that nobody showed up for this is indicative of how much people care about it, one. So we haven't moved at all. And
that's one of the things I find in my organization is that I know people that are of, this group. Yes, I know a lot, but most of them are unwilling to be open about it in the workplace. And this is an agency that works with the disabled population. our big focus, and we can't even talk about a difference in ourselves and feel like we're not going to be persecuted for it. But it's very relevant, and I get squashed because I'm outspoken, and I'm not going to back down because what I am saying is fact and it needs to change. So I get pushed. Oh, it's just her being just, she's got a lot of stuff going on. No, I don't. I want my coworkers to be comfortable being who they are to everyone in my organization, and they're not. And what does that say to my clients who are coming to me for information, and I'm supposed to be the one who's supporting them, and I will be open to listening to what they have to say, but my coworker may not. And I really truly feel that this is going backwards. And
now, can we point at some things that have moved forward? Sure. Massachusetts is the first state to have a Republican governor sign an executive order that allows LGBTQ businesses to participate in supplier diversity. Fantastic. Yes, corporate America, whether or not it's because they care about the issue or because it's impacting their ability to hire people, are getting interested in LGBTQ inclusion. Fine. What the fact that you even put us on a roster, like, we can see that as progress, right? But so there are some things moving forward, but until all people get involved, okay, and until organizations make it a priority that this is a thing, this is not something you choose to care about. You got to care about this, okay? Because there are kids in other parts of the country that aren't even allowed to be trans, and are like killing themselves. Mm-hmm. So like, this is not like a plain matter. So yeah, things are better in some ways, and things are the same in other ways.
I have to say, I am hopeful with people like Michael Wu, who is a senior at LaSalle University, that's doing stellar work around this issue.
Well, and I will say, it's not the young people that have the problem.
Right.
My kids, and
right.
I am the statewide executive director of an LGBT organization, and my kids school me all the time.
Yep.
When I make assumptions about somebody's gender, and I say, "Oh, who was that guy?" And they're like, "How do you know he's a guy?"
Yep.
And I'm like, I don't, sorry. And, turns out it is a kid that's a guy, but I shouldn't make that assumption, right? So our kids aren't the ones that have the problem. It's our generation that has a problem.
Right.
Right. And they're going to be fine. I'm not worried about Michael Wu and they're going to be
Gives
fine.
you hope.
But it's, we can't rest on those laurels.
No.
But it is hopeful. Like, those kids got it figured out. Kids have it figured out. They're not the ones that are having the problem. It's really our generation, our institutions, our leadership, and we're not leaving a legacy to make it easy for them. You saw what the Supreme Court did when they took in Dodds, when the Supreme Court took away the right for abortion across the country and gave it to the states. In the dissent, okay, Justice Thomas indicated the 3 laws he was going through after next. They're all gay-related laws. They're all about privacy.
Right.
Okay? They're all about privacy issues. So from a Supreme Court perspective, they're coming after us, right?
Yeah.
So again, we leave that legacy to Michael.
Sorry.
Well,
I apologize right now.
And I have to say, I think there's some, although there's a lot to think about moving forward. Luckily, there are folks like Liz and the Rotary Club of Newton who's been so welcoming in so many respects. And so, there's things I think out there, especially as a young adult who's going to be entering the workforce in May, of just, I have the right to choose what organization I want to work for and the mission that they have. And so, I'm going to be very cautious and intentional about the organization that I choose. That's why I chose Rotary to be a member of as well. I was an interactor, did RILA, was indirect president in high school, and joined Rotary when I got to college because I see the value of service. And I think that's one of the things that Rotary is all about. But it's a matter of also having folks who we are serving are also part of our club. Like, we have to be a diverse club, and wherever we are. And so that is so huge. Even in terms of age, I am one of the youngest, also one of the youngest on the boards, and I'm really proud of that. But we have to also think about who's in our clubs, who's represented, who's there, who's showing up and doing service. So all the pieces that Grace, I think, put together, but absolutely disappointing. Yeah, I would agree too, of just where we are, and that's the unfortunate truth. But
Michael,
I think we are moving the pendulum forward.
I will tell you that our chamber has a job board on our website that has vetted corporations that are hiring, specifically looking for LGBTQ people in every range.
I want to thank you guys for letting me join, you know, and quite honestly, this is the 4th or 5th one I've joined now. And as I came in here as the, you know, DEI chair, you know, I was like, oh, you know, I wonder if we're behind, you know, in what we're doing. And I just realized that, you know, we are right where we need to be, right? Which is what I keep saying is, you know, every club's at a different level. People are still not talking about it. We never implemented it for sustainability. We did it for the flavor of the month, and we got to do better, right? So I know that, like, if anybody is interested in joining our DEI committee, please let me know. But we have a lot of work to do. This conversation was extremely powerful, and I thank you for sharing openly.
Thanks.
I thank you for sharing openly, and I hope you don't mind. I'm sharing tidbits and thoughts at the end. That's my role. So if you don't mind, I'll be sharing a few things from this committee.
Thanks, Kate.
Thank you. Have a good day, everyone.
Thank you. We'll see you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Okay.
Anybody have any last comments? We have Elliot Rittenberg joining us, who is the assistant governor for 7910. Do I have that right?
Close enough. District
Okay.
governor.
District governor-elect, yes.
And I thank you for allowing us to join as well. So, and for being here today.
Yeah. So we really abbreviated the whole presentation piece because it was initially just the 5 of us. And so as people popped in, we kind of expanded the conversation a little bit. So I don't know if you have anything to add or comment or questions that you might have on LGBTQ as it relates to the chamber, as it relates to a student university, as it relates to the city of Newton, and as it relates to Work Inc.
No, I don't believe I have a specific or targeted comment at this point. I'm here to listen and learn just like everybody else, and just appreciate the opportunity to share with you. So
Okay.
And you can kind of see her coming in and out of the background here, but my wife Raina is with us here. As a matter of fact, I'm going to fix this.
He's going to fix that. Thank you. I don't feel quite so awkward.
There we go.
So, Elliot, since this was an abbreviated kind of piece where, unless anybody has any other comments, we were going to maybe hop into other groups to hear what they have to say. Because as I said, we were 5 here initially, we had our discussion, and as I said, people popped in. So I think we've kind of exhausted the topic for the moment anyway. So unless you have a comment as a district governor-elect from what you've heard, then I think people are just going to go to other rooms.
Well, my only comment is that, you know, everyone is welcome in our clubs. We're working hard to get there. We have a lot of work to do, as Kate said. So